Do you know Naomi? Is Stone? Is she?
Yeah, well, we're live now, and I'll be sure to send this to
Okay.
her.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, yeah.
everyone! Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Jackman Radio, and I got a cool guest tonight. He's an old friend from college. We both attended Franklin Pierce University together in the sprawling metropolis of Ringe, New Hampshire, my hometown, and it's Mr. Yaroslav Rybuha from Ukraine, and we've got some history between us. We've known each other. When did we meet? 2008.
About that,
I
yeah.
think it was like 2008. We worked together at Pierce for the conference center there that summer. And the war in Ukraine, broke out in the last month and a half. And Yuri and I reconnected on Twitter. And, I figured it'd be interesting to get his perspective on, what he's seeing over there. First and foremost, Yaroslav, I'm glad that you're safe and that you're okay. And currently you're living in Norway, right?
Correct.
And you said your folks were back in Ukraine?
Yeah, my family is in Odessa. My friends are in Chernihiv and Kiev. And my cat is actually in Berlin. Long story.
Your cat is there?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for starters, if you just want to kind of tell the audience a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, and what your overall, thoughts are on what's happening in your home country right now.
Well, I'm a web developer. That's what I do. And I edit videos also. Lived in the United States for 7 years. 4 years of those I spent in Franklin Pierce, and another 3 years I spent enjoying and traveling the United States. I've been to 21 states. I've been to 30-something countries. Now, I was just traveling in Athens when the war started. And it wasn't safe to come back home, and I figured I'd come to the closest country where I have friends, which is Norway. Now, what were the other questions?
So your perspective on what's happening in Ukraine and, how your family's faring, how your friends are doing, what their day-to-day is kind of like over there right now. I mean, I imagine you're probably in touch with your folks daily or every other day. I mean, how's communication between you and your family?
Right. Yeah, there are no words to describe the feelings and the levels of stress happening. There's just no words, but maybe you can imagine. I don't know. My parents are in Odessa. My dad, he's what you could call him a nationalist, actually, and he was really, and he's a Soviet military. Actually, he was a tank commander in Czechoslovakia back in 1980s. He was part of Soviet Union force who was occupying Czechoslovakia. Actually, back then he thought they were liberating them from capitalists and stuff like that. It's amazing how perspective shifts. But yeah, he's a military guy. Unfortunately, he has health issues, so he's not in the military now. But he's really calm. He's doing renovation in his home and just goes swims every day. Odessa has been shelled by rockets a couple times, but other than that, there are no fights going on there. So it's one of the safest places in Ukraine, although nowhere is safe right now in Ukraine because for the last 50 days, the Russian rocket could fall anywhere in Ukraine, as anywhere west, close to the Polish border, to my hometown, North Chernihiv, to Odessa, to anywhere. So my mom's just with him doing the same thing, kind of. And he, part of his nationalistic nature, he was actually kind of glad the war started now. A lot of, in a sense, like, finally we'll put an end to this and we'll not pass it to our future generation, this conflict.
Yeah, so I mean, like any country, there's always a divide with the citizens of the country, where they lie politically and how they view the world and their country. So If you could talk a little bit about that divide in Ukraine, because you said if your dad's a nationalist, and then obviously there are Ukrainians who are pro-Russia and they like this invasion and want to see Russia come in and have greater influence. So what is that like in the day-to-day life in Ukraine, and how does that kind of shape the view of this war that's happening?
Well, this war hasn't started like 50 days ago. It
Right.
started 8 years ago with the annexation of Crimea and Russia covertly invading eastern part of Ukraine. They just took their insignias and they were pretending it's not them really, but it was them. Um, so this war didn't started, and unfortunately, Russians are really good. Like it's probably one thing they're really good right now at is propaganda. Those guys are probably the best at it right now. The insane amount of money they're spending, like they have huge farms that just spam in your comments. But anywho, so the propaganda worked miracles to justify annexation of Crimea and to support the invasion of eastern Ukraine. And that propaganda worked on 17% of people in Ukraine, as in our parliament, the pro-Russian party gathered 17% of the votes. So, and granted, Crimea and eastern part was always pro-Russian. So when Russia invaded it and that cut off that huge voting pool. But anywho, yeah, that there was certainly maybe I would say half of the people who would not be so pro-Russian, but more like, oh, let's be friends, let's be peace, stuff like that. They didn't see Russia as an enemy per se, not being pro-Russian. Like when Russian uh, performers that performed in Crimea, meaning breaking the law of Ukraine, would come into Ukraine. Uh, those people, oh, music is outside of politics, but respecting the country's law would be like secondary to them. And right, not sure if I'm making sense.
Yeah,
So
no, I get what you're saying. Because like I said, there's factions with every country, with every government, and having a parliamentary system is different than what we have in the United States. So I look back to 2014, and a lot of those divisions were obviously very clear. You had one group that was kind of more aligned with the West and more with NATO and the European Union, wanting to kind of move in a more Western direction, and then obviously the groups and sections of Ukrainian society who are still view a strong relationship and connection to Russia as beneficial. So you saw a lot of that clashing going back to 2014 as well.
yeah, before 2014, actually, majority of people were against joining NATO, and 2014 opened some eyes to some people, but not everybody. Half of population still kind of didn't see an enemy in Russia, and 17% were clearly pro-Russia. But then this full-scale out war, it opened pretty much 99.5% of the eyes what Russia is.
So
I
you
would
think
say.
because of this now, because of Putin's actions, you think your average Ukrainian would now embrace NATO and want to join NATO more?
Oh yeah, the polls show majority of Ukrainians are for NATO, but but now since NATO isn't really helping much at all, it's like a great disappointment too at the same time. It's
Yeah.
like
So
it's too late for NATO right now, basically.
yeah.
Like
So I mean,
yeah.
what's your opinion and perspective on why Putin is doing this? Why do you think he finally launched an invasion into Ukraine and has been bombing Ukraine and has killed civilians and done what he's done? What is your thoughts on that? Like his thinking and motivations?
I think the bottom line comes down to his immaturity and him feeling inferior and him feeling not valued. The Western nations are not giving him approval. It's all comes down to that. He overstayed his period in power, and he wants to feel validated. He wants There's a great parallel with Hitler, how he felt embarrassed, shame. What did he feel? Shame for Versailles Treaty when they forced Germany to capitulate. So Putin felt shame for Soviet Union collapse. He clearly stated a couple times that that was the most tragic geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, the collapse of the Soviet Union. So he looks at Russia not as this great nation with lots of resources, smart people, huge potential. He looks at it as a piece of something broken that was used to be great, and he feels West is to blame for it, and especially Ukrainians, because we have a long history going, 5 centuries of wars. Ukraine tried to be independent many, many times, and uh, historically it has came down to our nations being not very much friends alike. Russians were prohibiting Ukrainian culture, language for it goes on and on. So in his eyes, it's justified to be attacking us to somehow limp to the greatness Russia empire once had, and the same way to with his immaturity to demonstrate how Russia can still do something because of that ultimatum they put to NATO. It was part of their plan. I think they knew NATO isn't going to comply with them, and that was just part of their plan to justify. You don't listen to us, so here you go.
Right. So you think that was kind of what spurred his reaction? Because I mean, I'll be honest, I really didn't think he was going to launch an invasion into Ukraine. I thought, like usual, it was a lot of saber rattling and a lot of rhetoric, and ultimately bullshit from him that he has a history of doing. But I think he took a lot of people by surprise with it for sure.
I thought so too. In fact, he was benefiting a lot by having all this attention and Macron visiting him, Biden calling him, everyone being concerned, and yet no consequences. The war hasn't started. So he had a lot of benefits while not starting the war, and starting the war was clearly a big mistake. What I believe, he miscalculated on two occasions. First occasion, the state of his army. He was under impression it was well funded and high tech, but it's not. And number two, he underestimated how Ukrainians would actually greet his army. He thought it would be almost like coming into Crimea.
Throw roses at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obviously with anything related to Russian government or that system is just graft and corruption and grifting and outright thuggery and thievery. So clearly their military is not in the tip-top shape he thought it was. And I think he's just got a lot of sycophants and yes men around him who won't tell him reality. And we hear, and even for someone like me, who I think I pay pretty good attention to this stuff, and I'd like to, hear your thoughts on this and what you're hearing, being from Ukraine and having plenty of friends and family in your home country. What are the numbers like? Because it's hard to trust a lot of sources because everyone has an angle and agenda when they're reporting on casualties. So, I mean, what are you hearing about how many Russians are being killed? We heard about all these Russian generals that the Ukrainians killed, and then, of course, numbers of Ukrainian civilians that are being killed. What are you hearing, in regards to those numbers?
I tend to believe the Ukrainian side because I see lots of photo, video evidence of it. Then there's this great journalistic website. I think it starts on O. They actually photo document every part of destroyed tank, personal carrier, everything. And just by photos alone, they have proved that Ukraine destroyed close to like 500 tanks. So you add another percent that wasn't photo documented, and you get the real Ukrainian number actually, which is right now. Let me tell you what it is for the tanks. 815 tanks, and just plus another 13 today. So yeah, if you want, I can find a website that photo documents every loss.
Yeah,
So
and I'm willing to look at everything, and that's a thing I think that's too bad when conflicts happen, that people just get on, they do team baseball and say, no, I'm not going to believe this, or there's no validity to these numbers or to this source. So obviously you're a credible source. It's your country, it's where your family lives, it's where your friends are. So I'm sure you're getting updates every day about that.
yeah, definitely. My day as I wake up starts from reading the front line of the news. I'm very scared to see the news that Odessa has been shelled because my parents are there.
Right.
So yeah, every time I wake up, it's the first thing I do, and probably spend a couple hours on the news.
Right. Yeah. Just combing through whatever you can read about it and
Yeah, listening
trying
to experts and
trying to get a
try
picture of what's happening.
yeah, doom scrolling sometimes
Doom
and trying
scrolling.
to calm myself down. It's been really stressful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine, man. It's and that's the thing. And then that's why I wanted to talk to you, because, it's people's perspectives are shaped by those narratives that they hear from the source that they trust or that their bias leans towards. And I watched a little bit of your response video to me on Twitter, and you mentioned Scott Ritter there, and you mentioned the Azov Battalion. So I'd love to hear what, in your words, what is the Azov Battalion, and what's your summation of them in Ukraine?
I love that you asked me that, and Scott Readers, and whenever someone speaks of Nazis and Ukraine in the same sentence, I guarantee this is like the Earth is round. That this is Russian propaganda. Because if you just step up for a second from and look at the reality, uh, that since when Nazis are defending their land with a Jew as their leader, right? Have you ever heard of or seen a photo of Ukrainian cities and towns having swastikas or any kind of superiority claims from any Ukrainian officials, right? Um, Moving on to nationalistic part, yes, every country has nationals. There is some percent of them. In Ukraine, nationalistic party got 1.6% of the votes in 2020 or 2019. So they didn't even cross the 5% parliament barrier. That's how low their support is nationwide. But yes, there are some nationalists. It's an inevitable part of any nation. And most of them are right now, of course, in Azov battalion. And whoever says that they're Nazis is just
Well,
reading too much Russian propaganda.
I would point to what they say themselves. I mean, in pictures that are out there of them with their paraphernalia and their flags, swastika flags. I mean, is that there? So you're just saying that's just all made up and that's all Russian propaganda? There's
it's not a
nothing
swastika
to any
flag.
of that. There's no neo-Nazis in the Azov Battalion.
Oh, absolutely not. And look, and maybe there are some individuals. I can't speak for every single one of them, right? Let's not, first of all, confuse nationalists and neo-Nazis. Those are different things. Nationalist puts his country first, but he doesn't shove it into other people's faces. He doesn't want to go out and prove it to someone else. While neo-Nazis, those are people who will go to your door and say, hey, I'm better than you, which Azov Battalion is not doing. If you look at how Mariupol, actually just today I saw the video, how Mariupol city has progressed at the time that Azov was there. There were no signs of any kind of neo-Nazi events, actions. So what do you call it? There, you call it swastika, but I agree it looks kind of like swastika, but it's not. It's this letter N with letter I.
Well,
Uh,
one of the battalion's logo, the black sun, which is a common white supremacist symbol, and the Wolf's Angel symbol used by the Nazi SS. I mean, that's clear as day on their uniforms that you see all over in official photos, not like photoshopped Russian propaganda. And you mentioned, why would Zelensky, a Jewish president, be collaborating with Nazis or be allowing this? Even Jerusalem Post has reported about Israeli weaponry ending up being used by the Azov battalion and what's going on over there. They published a video of a Ukrainian fighter with an anti-tank weapon, and clear as day, you can see on the weapon that it's part Israeli in origin. So there is that collaboration going on over there. Or you don't think so at all?
I, as I'm saying, whoever says Azov and Nazi, it's Russian propaganda.
Okay.
Like, if not Russian propaganda, you would not even have heard of Azov battalion. Ukraine has lots of battalions. They just picked Azov to make them a scary dog because it has a lot of nationalists there. But
Yeah.
again, those are not the people who think they're better than you. Those are not the people who think Ukrainians are superior or something. They don't go out their way shoving their ideas in someone else people. No, most of them speak Russians. Some Russians are in that battalion, for Christ's sake. I know their designer was Russian. So it's like there are Jews in that battalion too. Again, Nazis. If you hear Nazis, it's Russian propaganda. They've made this story up. And as I gave some facts of like how Ukraine had 1%, 1.6% nationalistic party. Like there's absolutely no. I could say absolutely. Granted, maybe some individuals do have swastika tattoos. There are extremists of this sort in any nation, right? It in no way justifies to label the whole battalion as Nazi, and in no way justifies the war. No way.
Okay. So I know Stepan Bandera is a historical figure in Ukraine. How do you view him? And if someone who had no idea who he was, what would you say to them about him and who he was and what he believed and stood for?
This is another classic of Russian propaganda. If Russians wouldn't made him this what do you call it, ball for kicking. Russians have created this Bandera thing for their purposes of frightening other people. You know what I mean? Like they need to create an enemy to show them, oh hey, this is an enemy. Like if not Russian propaganda, you would have never heard of the name Stepan Bandera. He would have been almost lost in the history and maybe some monuments in Ukraine. And I would have probably heard about him on history class and forgot about it. It's just not a major history figure. But thing is, they're trying to say he collaborated with Nazi and that he was a Nazi. But this guy, he never collaborated with Nazis. In fact, for refusal to collaborate, when Nazis invaded, he saw that as a liberation from communists, and he said, "Oh, great, we'll now have our independent Ukraine here." And Nazis didn't like that and put him in jail in 1944 and 1941. In 1944, they released him because they were already losing. So they're like, "Hey, help us against communists back there." But he refused that too. So Russia is accusing Stepan Bandera of collaborating with Nazis while he was not. It's just funny. They could have picked another guy. But again, every nation, I can't say every nation, but a lot of nations had some groups of people who collaborated with Nazis back then. Back then, Like French had I forgot what was their names. French had a group that had it. Norway had group
Lots
that
of other European countries had
a
groups.
lot, a lot.
Oh yeah,
They were a lot were enlisted.
yeah.
Um,
Austria had plenty.
the Russians had this huge division of Vlasov. They were the remains of white Russians. There were red Russians and white Russians back in. Anyway, that's the remains. They collaborate with Hitler. Um, so there were there were I think 3 battalions in Ukraine that did collaborate with Nazis, but Stepan Bandera was not among them. So
So I mean, overall, how is he viewed by everyday Ukrainians today? Is he a hero? Is he a pariah? Is he a national figure? I mean, how do you view him?
I view him as a hero. I view him as a hero. The guy was fighting for independent Ukraine. That was his goal. Um, he was fighting on Ukrainian land, and how could that not be a hero? I don't say he's a saint. I I don't know a lot about his biography. Again, as I'm saying, I don't think he's that big of a historical figure. He had some with Polish people. There was some bad things that he did to Polish people. Um, but back then, no one was saint. Polish people were no saints too. Churchill called Poland hyena of Europe because they were just wanting too much and grabbing on too much. Um, so, and also one key thing I wanted to tell you. Have you heard of Holodomor, 1932-33?
Tell me about it. I don't.
Basically, when communists came, they had this red terror to join Ukraine, and then they had to force people into collective farms, and they started. People were not listening to communists, so they started this man-made starvation that is now recognized genocide by many countries. Genocide of Ukrainians in 1932-33. Different estimates from 2 to 5 million Ukrainians have died from starvation. Actually, my grandma, she had cricket feet like this because she was born in 1931, and she got into this period of man-made starvation as a kid, as a baby, and her bones, when they were growing, they were wrap. I could see how she walks like this, you know. Um, so what I'm saying this is for you to understand that people in Ukraine back then didn't see communists as those great people who came to save them or anything. And when Nazis were coming, a lot of them were seeing them as liberators from this disaster. There are some documentaries in Washington. There is a memorial to Holodomor. I think 52 countries recognize it as genocide because it was targeted deliberately against Ukrainians, and it was man-made. So I just giving you a little bit of perspective back then in the late 30s, when when someone is kicking out communists, you would be happy about that. You would be happy about that. But
Right.
of
No
course,
matter who's doing it.
yeah. But of course, when people saw who is liberating them, they quickly lost
Yeah. Support for them.
faith in them too. Yeah, because it was one evil came by another evil.
Yeah. And I think what's lost on a lot of Americans about what's happening over there and why there's friction between the two countries, with the end of World War II and, the demise of Germany and the fall of the Nazis, the new threat for the United States was, communism and the Reds and the Soviet Union. And with Ukraine being where it is, on the world's map, so close to Russia, it really became an important land of proxy for the United States and Western interests and U.S. intelligence agencies, the OSS, and then the CIA. And ever since the end of World War II, Western intelligence and our intelligence agencies and even our military have made it their business to arm and train and fund groups in Ukraine to push back against Russia, well, the Soviet Union and now Russia. So I think that's one thing that's overlooked and not talked about a lot, is that history of using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia between East and West.
I guess my comment on this, I would not see that Ukraine was used in any sense. Bad as bad as corruption is in Ukraine, it's still a democracy. So whoever we elect is who we elect, who people of Ukraine elect. Now, yeah, those politicians who are elected, like the one that ousted in revolution, he was super pro-Russian. Our minister of defense was Russian. He was having his Russian coat of arms. Ukraine was sacked with Russians in high cabinets. In a sense, you're saying U.S. was using Ukraine. I wouldn't really agree with this statement.
Yeah, well, you could say using it or having it as a proxy, certainly sending arms, sending our CIA over there to train people. I mean, it's all well documented.
If you're saying in a recently, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely recently.
Yeah, but we're not seeing it as using. We're seeing it as help.
Well, of course, yeah. Your perspective would be that this is huge help, and
yeah, we need that.
It's going to benefit us in fighting Russia and Putin.
I guess it's already, if you look at it from that perspective, as let Ukrainians deal with Russia. Sure, we'll just give us weapons and we'll happily deal it with.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's in essence what's been happening. I mean, now the United States is appropriating billions of dollars to send over. Zelensky is practically begging for money, daily from the United States taxpayers. So it's happening. I mean, it has been happening. So what is the sense of the Ukrainian people about Zelensky? Do they feel he's been effective? They feel he's doing a good job? I mean, what's your personal opinion of President Zelensky?
I didn't vote for him, to be honest, and I'm kind of neutral. I see the pros and cons. Unfortunately, I see also a lot of, from my perspective, a lot of people in Ukraine are biased in the sense they only see pros or they only see cons. Like my dad, he only sees cons in Zelensky. He calls Zelensky really bad words. But from the other camp, I see the 73% of people who voted him, and some of them only see how great and amazing he is. I'm kind of in the middle. I see what he did bad. I see what he did good. But I didn't vote him, and I wouldn't want him to be president. But it is what it is. And currently, in this situation with Russia, I stand with all of his action until the victory. I am not criticizing him, although in this video we can talk about it. Yeah,
of course. Well, maybe your dad saw the video of him dancing around in the high heels there when he was a comedian.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. When Zelensky first came on my radar, when obviously I do comedy and performed, and I'm into political satire and comedy, and I heard there was this comedian in the running to be president of Ukraine, and without knowing anything, any context or background, I thought at its face that was cool, to hear about a comedian rising through the ranks and a guy who starred in a show in Ukraine television about a fictional version of himself being a school teacher, then becoming president of Ukraine, and then it actually happens in reality. So, at the Outpost, I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to see happen, where art actually, life imitates art, and it became reality. But yeah, I mean, right now, from my perspective in the United States, and depending where you are politically, like Zelensky's being propped up as this savior and messiah and this great leader, and he's doing a great job dealing with the Russians. And then some people are like, well, yeah, he's an actor, he's made for TV, and he has experience in performing for the cameras. So I guess depending on where you come down on things, you could have a certain view of him. So what are your dad's concerns about him? He just doesn't think he's.
Oh, my dad has a full list of concerns about him, and I agree with him on a lot of them. How it's now um, open source. It's now known fact that they knew invasion would be coming, like maybe a month or two in advance. Yet they haven't prepared. In a sense, like Bucha could have not happened. Just give those people weapons, train those people. I'm sure in every city in Ukraine, every village in Ukraine, there'd be at least a battalion of people who would ready to take arms and prepare for it. Um, my, um, mind the mind the roads, put the block posts, pull down the trees. Like they even knew exact date and time when the invasion is going to happen. But this is my main. Like I'm reading interviews of people who were liberated from the liberators, what horrors they had to went through. I'm like, this could have been prevented with decent preparation. But whom to blame but not Zelensky for basically just saying, "Calm down, no one's gonna attack us. We got everything under control," something like that. Um, and the other thing was when he came in power, he cut down the financing of development of new weapons. Actually, the Neptune rocket, Ukraine made Neptune rocket that sunk Moskva cruiser. He stopped financing that program and many other programs. So luckily, Ukraine had time to develop it before 2018, before he came in power. He redirected the money from financing weapons to building roads and bridges. Great. So,
What was what's your thought on the Snake Island incident? What was that all about from your point of view?
yeah, that was the first day of invasion, and Russian ship was told to go fuck himself. And we thought those people were dead first because Russian ship said surrender or we will open fire. So we haven't heard anything from them, and for like a week we thought they were dead, but Russians luckily they survived, and that was great. Yeah, that was great. I got a post stamp. I got my friend to get me a post stamp with that. Uh, with that, I don't know if you've seen that illustration of.
Put it on a stamp.
It's on a stamp. A Ukrainian soldier flipping the Russian ship.
Nice.
And for your question in regards how West or other people perceive Zelensky, I did saw a lot of like those not cartoons, what do you call them? Caricatures or like posts, how he's such a brave leader and stuff like that. I would say it's cute to see. Maybe it's a bit overdone, but hey, I I can't say if he's an actor. Yeah, he's good with the audience, but I wouldn't think he's manipulating in any sense. I think he's pretty straightforward. Hey, this is what we need.
Yeah, well, it's they got him running around in the navy shirt there, with the fatigues and filming all kinds of videos. What blows my mind is there are Americans, and maybe you've heard about some of this. Some of the Americans who want to join the Legion, the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and actually go over and fight in Ukraine against the Russians. Which, in my personal opinion, I think that's completely insane, and like it's hard for me to grasp. It's hard for me to grasp. But what have you heard about foreign fighters coming to Ukraine and fighting against the Russians?
There are. I think the numbers are more than 20,000.
20,000 is the number I've heard. Yeah.
I have a friend whose friend is now American friend whose friend right now is in Lviv. He's a medical war medic. He's doing that. So actually, 2 handshakes away, I know somebody who's American and who's now in Ukraine. I'm more curious what makes it for you sound to be insane to if someone wants to do that what makes it so insane for you
Oh, I
or
mean, yeah,
not.
you
Yeah.
have the right to do it. You can go and do it. I just think it's crazy. I do. I can't fathom it. You know, you would be so compelled to go sign up to. You're an American citizen, and you would be so compelled to go sign up for another country's military or legion to go over there and fight against Russia when that country has not militarily attacked your country or threatened your country. So I just, personally, I don't jive with that or think it's a real well thought out thing or something worthwhile to do with your life.
Well, we don't see like huge amount of people coming here. It's very very limited. What 400 million population United States, and probably like 5,000 came. That's even below statistical.
Yeah, it's still 5,000 people.
So, those people must. I would assume a lot of them are professional in
Well,
this area.
mercenaries, yeah,
Well, not mercenaries, but maybe ex-veterans or
former, yeah,
ex-military. They know what they do. I think a lot of them has already been in Ukraine as part of training or stuff like that, because United States and Ukraine had a lot of common trainings. Um, you might be shocking, but some people enjoy war. There
well,
are
I
people
know, and
who enjoy war,
that's insane to me too. I think
and
that's a product of manipulation and propaganda, and
I think it's more of a product of mm, childhood traumas.
sure, that could be
But
part of it too.
because it's extreme, like this adrenaline rush. This they're after it, I think, and the war gives it to them. This risk of being killed or you kill. It's like video game, but million times bigger emotions. And whatever 5,000, or I don't know the exact number, came. Um, I think it's well within those marginal statistical limits. And the friend of my friend who came, he was in Ukraine before, and he's a war medic. He saw he could help people. A lot of they just want to help, yeah, and I think that's honorable and
Sure,
brave too.
yeah, intentions of wanting to help. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could probably chalk it a lot up to my libertarian worldview of not messing around with other countries and entering into entangling alliances and going over and being compelled to pick up arms against a country that has not attacked my country or invaded my country. So that's my perspective on it, anyways.
On Vice News, there is actually an American Texan who was on the side of Russia, fighting against
Against
American
Ukraine.
imperialism in Ukraine
Oh
on the side of
Jesus,
Russia.
I gotta
Vice
check that
News,
out.
Vice News, Texan. If you type that in YouTube,
Yeah, yeah. Vice is
listen to what he says. It's insane.
so he's a Texan American dude who went over to fight for the Russians, and
Against American
he
imperialism.
views it
Yeah,
that he's fighting American imperialism. So
fighting American.
he views Ukraine as an instrument of U.S. imperialism.
He views Ukraine as U.S. Expanding further.
Okay.
It to me it sounds as bizarre as
Yeah.
queers supporting Palestine.
As who supporting Palestine?
Have you seen that poster, Queers for Palestine?
Oh, like gay people for Palestine?
Yeah. I don't know if
Uh,
you've seen.
no.
Palestine shot like, was it like 2 years? I don't know. Recently they launched hundreds of rockets into Israel, and Israel retaliated and like responded severely. And people didn't like how Israel responded. And those group of people, queers and like LGBT community, they had this banner: "Queers support Palestine." Basically, do you see the?
I didn't see that, but I mean, Israel blew up a building full of journalists. I mean, that's always their response. Their response is always incredibly heavy-handed and
Yeah,
unwarranted.
we could judge that or not.
Oh, I mean, it's a totally different conversation. But no, I'll have to look into that. I have never seen Queers for Palestine.
The thing is, if those queers would be in Palestine, they would have been stoned to death immediately.
So you're saying that Palestinian culture is not friendly towards gay people?
Yeah, same way this Texan is fighting
Okay.
Imperial Russia against American imperialism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's batshit too, man. I think he's crazy for. I think any human is crazy. That's going to go do that. You're going to go sign up if you have your reasons.
as I said back, there's some individuals who are like that, and
Yeah. Yeah, if you're born into extreme violence and it's all you know and it's kind of baked into your DNA and you've been around it your whole life, obviously you'll be more prone and susceptible to it.
yeah, there's um, there's another Canadian, I think the famous sniper Valley. He's also in Ukraine. Have you heard of him?
I may have heard about that. So he's a Canadian national, and he was in the Canadian military, and he's over in
He's in
Ukraine.
Canadian military. He was in Syria and Iraq, I believe, and
Yeah,
he's supposedly the best sniper out there. And he's now in Ukraine, fighting for Ukraine. I read his interview too. He said he came because he has a friend here who invited him over, and he said, him being what he does best, he couldn't say no.
yeah. I'll have to look. Yeah, I vaguely have heard a little bit about that, but I haven't
Mm.
dug too deep into that.
Yeah, just to the topic of foreign legion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, so I mean, outside of obviously worrying about what's going on there in your home country, I mean, what are you doing? You doing anything for fun there in Norway, man? I mean, to take your mind off this stuff. I mean, you got to have some kind of release and you know do something nice for yourself every now and then.
Yeah, Norway, in terms of people, is very warm at accepting me. Very, very nice. Um, like I have friends here, and I've already met their friends, and they took me snowboarding here. The friend's place that I live right now, his sister is a pilot, and we went flying in their airplane around Norwegian mountains and fjords. It was amazing. And I live right by next to the mountain. I hike every day. It's really great.
That's awesome. So yeah, do
Yeah.
some
So
hiking and the Norwegian. Yeah, I mean Scandinavians are really friendly people. I stayed in Sweden for a week. I went to Västerås, Sweden, and I found them to be very friendly and really nice people.
yeah, the amount of support here is insane. Well, I don't know how it's in other countries, but Ukrainian flags here almost everywhere. Um, I get free food. I had an option to stay in the hotel for free.
Public transport, you were
Uh,
saying in your video,
oh
train
yeah,
train tickets.
all transport is free. I was given a bunch of clothes. Basically, this is just so much help here.
So do you have official refugee status, or you're just like an Ukrainian living during this conflict in Norway?
Yeah, I did apply for refuge status because I don't know when it's gonna end, and
Right.
I was hoping it would be some financial help here or something like that. So yeah, I do have that,
Yeah, I can tell
and
you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I did apply for financial aid. Still waiting. The
Yeah,
thing I learned about Norway, it's bureaucracy here is insane,
I bet.
and Norwegians are laughing about it too.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty expensive over there too. I mean, I remember
Super.
my friend was in Norway and he couldn't believe how expensive some of the food is. So we got a couple questions here and comments. Mark says, "Where in Ukraine is Yaroslav from?"
Um, the last 4 years I lived in Kiev, but originally I'm from Chernihiv, which is north, and it was in the blockade for a while. Um, and my grandparents are from Odessa, and my grandparents from my father are from Chernihiv region as well. So, and then 7 years I lived in the United States, so it's like my second home.
Yeah, New
Yeah.
Hampshire specifically, my neck
New
of the woods.
Hampshire,
How,
all
how we
7 years, all 7 years.
how we know each
Live
other.
free or die, live free or die.
Yeah, man. Let's see some other questions. So yeah, this is something we hear about a lot. You have any thoughts on the biolabs that are over there, or is that just Russian propaganda? Because
You
that's
know,
talked about a lot over here.
yeah, true. It is talked about a lot. I haven't paid much attention to it. I haven't researched this question. On the surface, my opinion is Ukraine has biolabs. So what? Ukraine has trash refineries. Ukraine has telescope. Ukraine has a lot of things. Like, what's the big deal of those biolabs? I don't know. What I think is happening is just another reason where Russia tries to justify its invasion by saying there's some bioweapons or something. And some Russian propaganda even claimed Ukraine has been developing birds. I don't know. Have you heard this story? Russian propaganda, true story. Russian propaganda claimed that Ukraine was developing birds who could carry a virus that targeted only Russians, and so that they would fly into Russia and kill a bunch of Russians. True story. A lot of Russians even believed that. Uh, so
that's crazy.
I don't need to tell you that it's impossible to make a virus who would target only Russians.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, if you have a
I
virus
mean,
going to target everybody,
how do you know I'm not Russian? I'm like I'm
right. The bird could tell from the sky if you were Ukrainian or Russian.
My mom
easily.
is half Russian. What? It's like, would she die too? What the hell? It's just funny.
Right. Yeah, I remember you know Russian. You can speak Russian, right, fluently.
Yeah, fluently. Yeah.
I remember we used to have you say some lines in Russian at Pierce. So you were like,
yeah, probably not a good word.
Like a villain from Rocky or something, a Soviet era villain. Yeah, we have people here in Peterborough, New Hampshire, where I live. There's a lot of Ukrainian flags hanging around here, which is it's an interesting thing to see. It's very interesting, and it leads me to ask, well, where's your Palestinian flag or your flag from Yemen or any other country that's dealing with strife and war and conflict right now? It's just the media is focusing on this right now. It's there's a funny meme, Yuri, of Vladimir Putin at a Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, and it says, Vladimir Putin awarded Nobel Peace Prize for ending global pandemic.
Yeah. What I think, this is a great ethical question in a sense. Why weren't there, like Palestine, right, or other countries that are being unjustly treated by, I don't know, how could I label this? How could I word this? But you get the idea. Same was happening with Ukraine. 8 years. 8 years. No one cared.
There were no Ukrainian flags in the last 8 years here.
No one cared.
You're right.
There was
totally
an active war.
Yeah.
Russia, there's evidence, Bellingcat, satellite, video. Russia was shelling Ukraine across the border all those 8 years. Russia is a terrorist state. Yet everybody was doing business with Russia as usual. All these 8 years. Because, and what I'm observing and coming to conclusion that a little bit of murder is okay. A little bit. So somewhere a little bit in Palestine, somewhere in whatever, Afghanistan, it's a little bit. But when it comes like this full scale, when you see and it's broadcasted everywhere, and it's like that becomes, oh, this is not okay.
That's unacceptable.
There's some kind of boundary there where.
This is when we start hanging flags.
Yes, if like, I don't know, if more than 10,000 people are dead in like one attack, then you start having flags. I don't know how to say.
Yeah, but, no, I get totally what you're saying, and you're absolutely right about that. I mean, your average American does not pay attention. They whatever is flashing and bright and put in front of them is the next thing, and they get on board with it most hook, line, and sinker.
And it's not just Americans. I feel like it's just human nature. Even as like 17% of Ukrainians voted for pro-Russian party in Ukraine, while Russians were freaking killing Ukrainians and Russians who lived in Ukraine all those 8 years. So propaganda plus ignorance would do the thing. Feels like human nature.
No, that's true. Yeah, J.C. Denton. This I support the current thing. That's the meme around it. So whether it's the COVID, wear your mask, get your vaccine, or now I stand with Ukraine and I'm going to put a Ukrainian flag in my window. I mean, I'm just not a big flag guy in general. I mean, I don't, flags are flags. It's people get worked up over them and amped up over flags. So I mean, obviously, I don't care if you can hang whatever flag you want. Here in America, we're protected by the First Amendment, and if you want to fly a Ukrainian flag, go for it. Go nuts. What if I flew a Russian flag though? That wouldn't go over well, would it? Just to troll.
There's certainly trolls like that too. In Ukraine, we don't have this support, whatever thing. We don't have this movement or something like that. So But knowing American culture,
Right.
I understand it comes to show the ignorance of some people, like not caring enough. They're like just faking it to seem like they're part of the group. They not really care what they support. I get what this meme is laughing at, but at the same time, I personally feel it's a little bit devaluing to Ukraine, to the horrors Ukrainians are experiencing right now. And when someone puts a meme like "I support the current thing," oh, but
Well,
again,
it's your
it's
life. I
just
mean,
what I initially
it's
felt.
your personal. I mean, it's your country. Of
Yeah,
course,
it's what I initially feel.
you're, you're gonna feel
I
differently about it and feel a way
I feel
about it. Of
like
course.
I feel like it shouldn't be devalued. The horrors
Yeah.
and the support is great, and Ukrainians feel that support, and it's helping.
So, as a Ukrainian, you like that there's people here in New Hampshire hanging the flag of your country here in the Monadnock region of New Hampshire.
Well, if you put the question like that, um, I don't know. Well, it feels great to have support. It feels great. It feels great. Yeah, it feels great.
You feel encouraged by it and supported.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I won't lie on my end. I'm a shitlord about a lot of things. I'm into political satire, and we're becoming very friendly with a comedian named Alex Stein, who I don't know if you've seen him or heard of him, but he has an absolutely, in my view, a brilliant bit where he dresses up as a American member of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and he goes to these city council meetings pretending to be recruiting to join the Azov battalion in Ukraine, and he just trolls
Mm.
everybody. He has a picture of Zelensky, and he has a whole rap. I'd be interested to send that to you and get your reaction to it, because yeah, I mean, depending on where you are politically and what you believe, I think it's a fair question for American taxpayers and Americans to ask. You know, why do we have to send billions over to Ukraine and and support them? So
Absolutely. And because if Ukraine falls, they're gonna come after you.
Russia's going to come after America.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think we
It's
disagree
gonna
there, Yuri.
it's gonna come after one of the NATO nations, and
Well,
you would
yeah,
have to be get involved.
right there. I've had that conversation with
It would.
some friends, and yeah, that's why I want resolution to this, man. So, in your view, what would peace talks look like, and what do you think would be the best solution to what's happening?
Russia is a terrorist state, and there there could be no negotiation with terrorists. However, there are probably three ways negotiations could go. Discuss the topics. First of all, is coordinating green corridors to let civilians out. This is crucial to have some kind of contact with them. Although a lot of them don't. I can't say a lot of them, but I constantly now and then hear the story how Green Corridor were shelled. The second would be to negotiate their capitulation, and the third, prisoners of war exchange. Other than that, what could be negotiated with them? Israel
Yeah,
doesn't negotiate with terrorists, and it's about because if yeah, and luckily we can afford not to negotiate with them.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to certainly prolong things, and my fear as an American, in my perspective, is that through a NATO country or through what's happening with Ukraine, is the thing does escalate into full nuclear exchange. So that's why I'm so pro getting together and talking and trying to de-escalate tensions.
I'm totally with you. No one wants a war with Russia. No one wanted it. No one wants a nuclear war. Absolutely
Yeah,
no
we
one.
all lose in a nuclear war.
Question is, what is the best way to prevent it, right? And there are several ways. There are several ways. Uh, the best way is one, but the ways to prevent it, there are multiple. And I think here where we have different opinion, maybe. You see one way is the best way to prevent the war. nuclear war. I see another way. It's the best way to prevent the war. But our ultimate goal is the same. No one wants the war. And
Yeah.
I think Putin and Russia right now, they're a geopolitical bully. And the only language they understand is the language of force and firmness. If you show weakness, he's going to be poking that weakness more and more. It's just what he does best. He's KGB.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, he wants to cement his legacy, and he's paranoid. You got to know some of the people around him are looking for their opening, and there's plenty of anti-war and anti-Putin people in Russia, but of course, we know that they get stamped out, and Navalny got poisoned and then locked in jail. Boris Nemtsov was killed, shot there on that bridge right outside the Kremlin. Oligarchs who run afoul of the Kremlin and criticize Putin and take off, they'll track them down and poison them with Novichok. So, I'm not denying any of that. And that's another thing I want to clear up with you too, Yuri, is that, don't mistake my wanting to not have a direct battle with Russia as being like a Putin fan or standing for him or being a simp. Or I know before you said, oh, you're licking the ass of Putin, which is not the case. It's wanting to avoid a nuclear war and a direct hot war between the United States and Russia. So I'm glad.
Totally. I have the same goal as you, but as you're saying, different ways to get there. Great lesson, or not lesson, or maybe great parallel from the history. British Prime Minister Chamberlain, before the war, 1938, he signed peace agreements with Hitler. He wanted to avoid war with Hitler, but history showed Hitler appeasement didn't work out. But Hitler's a little bit different case than Putin, but still, I think you gotta stand firm, and because bully, you gotta stand firm to the bully.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a tough thing all around. Well, we just came up on an hour here, Yuri, and I really appreciate you coming on, man, and accepting my invitation, and talking about this. It's very interesting to hear your perspective. And first and foremost, I wish you and your family and all your friends and everybody in Ukraine well, and I hope that they're safe, and I really hope that there can be resolution to this quickly, because I'm bummed about it, man. It's a complete bummer. No one's happy about it. No one's glad to see it. And when you know someone who's actually from there and you can talk to them, I think it's a very important perspective to have. So, I appreciate what you're doing, and I thank you for coming on with me today.
I very much so appreciate you inviting me and letting me speak and express my opinion.
Yeah.
I hope maybe we can repeat it one day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And where can people find you, Yuri, and check out your stuff and support you?
I have a YouTube channel that I'm running war situation updates every 5 days, and I post them on Twitter under Savage Sage handle.
All right. Yeah. And folks, I put those links in the description of this video, so you can check that out. And well, hey, man, I'm glad that you're safe in Norway, and I hope you can get home soon, and we can see an end to this thing. So thanks for coming on. Yeah, and I'll definitely want to have you on again. So if you want to hang out for a minute after I end the broadcast, we can say bye. But
that's good.
So everyone watching, thanks for tuning in, and support this channel. Click the subscribe button. If you like what you see, become a patron. Go to patreon.com/JackmanRadio and follow me on all social media. And again, Yaroslav, thanks, man. You stay safe out there. And to all the folks watching, you have a great night, and we'll see you next time on Jackman Radio.